sort of get a better introduction of them. So I actually wanted to start with Zarian. I was just wondering, so again, you started this co-living space in San Francisco, and I just want to, maybe just tell us like a little bit about how the whole thing works. Like you're in the old Red Vic, which is an old movie theater, and this, how many years ago did you?
Actually, I was founding a network, and Red Victoria was one of many. So we also have another house that we see in San Francisco. One of these houses is from San Francisco. I know people think that they're coming the day, but they're alive and thriving.
Right.
So each of these houses is set up in different ways, and the network is really built around collaboration and shared values. So it's not like I didn't start it out. We started it up, and the project is emergent from the people that participate in it. So it's been a wild ride.
And is it is the idea that you're kind of building things together in these spaces and like kind of like, is it also like kind of creating company, like the idea of like to create a company and build things, or is it more just like co-living and people kind of do their own?
So each of our houses is sort of autonomous, but they have their own sets of values and their own things like that. But for the most part, these are sort of socio-political spaces that are interested in creating social experiments where we can try and think about different ways of being, different ways of living, so that they're sort of like prototypes and test pilots for a future that we might wish we had now.
Right.
So they're not really about creating business or work as much as creating alternatives to business and work.
Right. So my question, just to follow up on that, I wonder why San Francisco? Like it's so damn expensive here. And you think about the kind of back to the landers. Actually, my parents were back to the landers. Like they moved to like really cheap places, where like you can get land really cheap. So why San Francisco?
I mean, we're not offered with effective wallet, so we're not day job, and so most of us do, but that doesn't mean that we're not still fighting for the right to not work.
Right. That's right. All right. And moving down the line, Opiel. So you, part of the mission of where you work is to help low-income people kind of get ready to work, specifically in the gig economy. Yeah. So maybe walk us through what kind of things you try to impart on people, and then what the idea or goal is. The idea that this is helping get some part-time work to get kind of more of a career, or.
Yeah, definitely. So we understand that basically the American workforce is changing. So 35% of Americans freelance in some capacity. 50% of Americans are going to freelance by 2027. So our goal is really to make sure that low-income communities also benefit from independent work, because we are completely aware of the fact that it has downsides. You can have difficulty having benefits or income volatility. But so what we've seen is that it can be a great opportunity for some types of population. So for instance, if you're a student from an underserved population and you're trying to launch your career in IT, you can use freelancing to build your resume. Or if you have been out of the workforce for a while, so let's say you have been homeless for some time and you're trying to build a bridge to employment, freelancing can be really helpful for you too. So basically that's what we are doing. We make sure that this is a stepping stone that can help people get back on their feet.
Cool. And then what kind of things are you educating about all the apps they can potentially work for? Like what's the, and actually, so I report a lot on the gig economy, and I think I might have some insights that maybe are on the negative side, which I think would be interesting to sort of talk about a little bit.
Yeah.
But what are you trying to sort of impart on these workers?
Yeah. So our training is not advocating for, do gig work is going to be great for you. We are picturing a very realistic description of the gig economy. So just the positive aspects of it, the less positive aspects of it, and trying to make people aware of benefits. You don't have it. Taxes, you need to feel them at the right time and so things. So it's understanding the gig economy, and then being able to find work. Only 15% actually find work online, so you can also find it through your local community. The third part is more succeeding as a freelancer, personal branding, contracting, negotiation, networking, so a very broad set of soft skills that you can actually use in other aspects. And the last part is more around financial planning, which is a big part of succeeding as a freelancer.
Great. And well, Ben, I wanted to ask you. So, a big part of your job is getting a foreign investment, right? And just one, none of us have probably done that in the room. Like, I definitely haven't. I'm curious what the practice is. Like, how is it mostly? Are you like creating partnerships with other organizations, or is it actually like cultivating relationships with individuals and trying to get them excited about a project or trends?
In fact, I'm not the CEO of Paris Student Enterprise anymore, but doesn't matter. I will try to answer your question. But I think we are just at the beginning of the superstar economy, and more and more people are suffering from that, because more and more people are suffering from long commutes, from Iran, from interiorious living condition, and we have to deal with it not with technology but with politics. And I'm really convinced that the politics can change things regarding housing, transportation in our cities, and it's the main part of our job. The main part of our job is not to give money to people to come to Paris or London or New York or San Francisco. It's to make the best place for people to live in, and because of smart people and every people can live in such a city, and then the firms and companies will move into such a city. So we have to organize the city the best as possible, and to make it affordable for every people. And at this time we will be able to attract people.
That sounds a lot more interesting than getting a rich person to bail you out. So, but yeah, so I'm struck by something you said, because being in Silicon Valley and doing a lot of work interviewing like tech CEOs, I feel like there is a sense here that like technology is going to save us. So we can't just like make an app and get out of this mess.
Regarding the affordable housing crisis, nothing is set in stone. For instance, when you look at Vienna, Vienna is a city with 60% of every citizen live in social housing. It's a big city with 2 million inhabitants. So I think nothing is set in stone. Technology will not solve the housing crisis, and we have to take radical measures in terms of housing. For instance, think about self-assessed property tax, high property tax, so something like 10%, 20%, and we have to think about community land trust. It is the kind of things we are looking for in Paris to help solve the affordable housing crisis.
And do you interact a lot with people in Silicon Valley? And how do you convince? Do you ever get into arguments with them where you're like, yeah, you gotta like, you can't just build an app. You have to focus on the politics. Like, do you find yourself in those kinds of discussions a lot?
I think the reality will catch up all of us. I think if cities are becoming rich and strongholds, it will end up like the Bastille, to take a French reference. So we really need to rethink our urban land and urban policies in a global way, because it's not a crisis focused on the Western countries. In China, for instance, in Beijing, 1 billion people live in underground basements. It's not a good living condition. And today, no government has a real solution to deal with the global crisis, and I think one of them could be to change the perception, to change the view about private property of land.
Right. Well, then last, Richard Walker, I want to sort of bring this back to San Francisco. I feel like when I report on things like homelessness or income inequality, a lot of listeners are like, they sort of want a solution, or like, well, why is there so much homelessness, or why is it so income inequality so high? So I was wondering if you could give someone one sort of lens or framework to understand the questions a little better, to like, or just to sort of like how to think about these things. Like, what would your advice be to someone who like wanted to get a grasp on such a paradox between the money here and the need.
It's lovely to see you all here. This is wonderful. Congratulations to the consulate and others who organize this. This is terrific. And okay, now I have another 2 hours to speak. Is that right? Okay, good. So we'll get this solved. I actually I've got lots to say about housing. But first I wanted to riff off of what you said today. Because that AT&T ad about the fetish of utopian technology, or the technological sublime, as one author called it, which Americans are, and modern capitalist society are totally in awe of. And IT, tech we have here is just the latest version of that. We are just discovering that they promise the world and they do deliver a new world, but not the utopian one they promised. And so we're beginning to figure that out. And of course, all the ways that it doesn't work and it's not utopia are pretty apparent to people that live in the Bay Area, I think, from housing to work to inequality. So I want to say a couple other things about the mythology of tech. I mean, these are the latest capitalists. But they have a mythology that there are a bunch of geniuses who are creating this brilliant stuff out of the head of Zeus, Athena from the head of Zeus. It's an old, kind of an old myth. And actually they rest, speaking of work, their efforts rest on a century of development of electronic and information technology in the Bay Area, one of the great historic centers of this. Doesn't just go back 20 years, I go back 50 years. Goes back to Lee DeForest in Palo Alto in 1908 with the vacuum tube, and even a little before him. And there's this immense edifice of firms interacting, of workers interacting, of technology building up, and innovation building up, and so on. It is a collective project. When we talk about work versus the so-called geniuses, the capitalist geniuses who are so rich because they're so brilliant, who actually did the work? Mountains of engineers, for one, and innovators, on which these guys are simply surfing. And yet, they get to surf home with billions of dollars, which is a problem. So the second thing, of course, is then we attribute it to the top 20% of creative workers, which is they're techies. And there are a lot of brilliant people, right? Some of them are you. And professionals who help build this marvelous economy of the Bay Area, which is the richest in the world per capita. And probably the most successful urban economy in the world over the last decade. It grew by 50% virtually in this decade. It's an astounding rate of affluence and wealth. Okay, so those people did a lot. But what about the other 80%? What do they figure in this story? So when we talk about work, how about the work of the actual working class, the 80% who support this whole edifice, and without which you don't get fed, your kids don't get taught, their diapers don't get changed, the trucks don't deliver your Aldi packages to your door, and so on and so on and so on. Ordinary work. And how are those people doing? Well, the 1%, as we know, and the Bay Area is one of the great contributors to inequality in the world today. We're not just, we're so liberal. But in fact, our billionaires, we have more billionaires per square foot than any place on earth, with the possible exception of Hong Kong. Okay? So we're creating inequality at the top. Meanwhile, how are the workers doing? Oh, they must be doing great because of high average wage and so on. The bottom 25% barely make the minimum wage. The bottom third don't make a living wage. And who are those people? They're overwhelmingly people of color, a lot of single women, raising kids, and so on and so on. It's not the glamorous story that you hear. It's that pretty, everyday story. And, tech is the latest vanguard of capitalism, but the problems of inequality, of hard work, and underpaid workers persist. And it takes on new twists because we keep de-taxing the rich, for example. But it's still kind of an old story of how the workers are not given the recognition or the pay they deserve. Is that too long? Is that?
No, that was great, but man. Very uplifting and happy and great, right? We're all, and I don't know, I was thinking of one.
I'm a great booster of the Bay Area. I am, actually.
There's a stat that I was thinking about when I was on this panel, and you probably already heard this. I mean, the media's been reporting a lot, but that you qualify for low income as a family if you're under $117,000 a year, and that's the figure for the Bay Area. So, yeah. I wonder if any of the other panelists want to respond to anything Richard said, or also have some other specific questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's spot on. You know, I think, so I'm from London, and I've been in the Bay Area for 7 years, and it's really striking being here because there's an incredible amount of, like, blind optimism, and also a lot of power and a lot of, like, knowledge, and so it's interesting because it does feel like there's a huge amount of leverage in the Bay Area, and on the other hand, it's the only place in the world I've ever discovered rich anti-capitalists, and that's why I'm still here, building another world with them, you know, and that's really fascinating. So I do think it's a really interesting place to think about the future of work. I know that everybody's really worried that we're going to automate our way out of jobs, but I think that should be the goal.
Yeah, Robin, I wanted to ask you, since you were talking about politics, and again, I think a lot of the solutions here tend to be kind of tech-focused. Yeah, how, is there just, in Paris, in France, is there just more reception to thinking of the problem first politically? Is that still the case? Yeah.
I think the question of land property is very crucial because we have changed our production model. So now it relies on intangible assets and on the concentration of wealth and production. And the main asset, tangible asset now is land, because we have to live in urban areas, so the land is very crucial for economies, and so we have to rethink our perception of the taxation of the land property, and thanks to it we'll be able to tax the wealth and rich people, and not to focus on income or revenues, but really on the property of the land, because every company, even the thickest one, relies on the land, because it has to host people, to host workers, and the workers have to live in some house. So at the end, we have to focus on the land property.
Oh, yeah. Well, why is land so expensive in cities? Because cities is, you know, we may say production today is very abstract and so on, and yet, as I was trying to say, there's an awful lot of people doing work, and that's not abstract. And cities are the places where most of our work is going on in the world today. Big cities have been outgrowing, middle-sized cities, which have been outgrowing small cities, and rural areas have been going to hell. And this seems to be a long-term trend. It has to do with a number of things about the changing nature of the division of labor and of work. And industries like tech, finance, business management tend to concentrate in cities. So cities are these huge engines of growth. They bring in enormous amounts of money and people, and that, of course, drives up land values, which you would expect. But when we look closer to Bay Area, for example, we see that there's more things going on here. The tech companies are making enormous rents, like land rent, except in this case, it's monopoly rents from, like Google controlling 80% of the searches. Everybody should use Chrome. And Lou, that's a little footnote.
Do they have a cute doodle?
No, they don't, but it doesn't track you. And these companies are making these obscene profits, which are driving out other media, driving out other industries, and they're obscene profits. And on top of that, we then de-tax the rich. We've got, the Republicans have done, what, 4 or 5 times in my lifetime? Disgusting de-taxations that shouldn't have been done, have no economic merit whatsoever, are based simply on class power, the capitalist and business class, to make itself richer. And the result of that, of course, is the arrogance of that class they're so disconnected from the world now that the political upshot of that is Donald Trump. And we are, as a people, unbelievably depoliticized. The French are more political than we are. They're out in the streets. I mean, they've got their problems, and some of the problems are exactly the same as here. The declining countryside, everything happening in Paris, and we know only 3 other places. But it's similar problems of massive urban economies, over-enrichment of the companies and the people in those economies, including well-paid professionals like me, who are paid really too much, and working-class people who are paid too little. And we better, if we can't, and the only way to solve that is politics. And the economists say, oh, it's all because of technical change. That is horse picking. It's because of the defeat of the working class and the unions in neoliberalism over the last 40 years.
Really, I want to talk to you because we talked a lot about the workers. And in my job, I actually work, a lot of the stories I do are about gig workers. I spend a lot of time interviewing them and talking with them. And I'm wondering, when you interact with them, like, what are the kind of stories you hear? Where are they at? And what are the, like...
For community villages, so we have a very broad population that we serve. And as I was saying, so we work with youth who are, for instance, like in a IT program, and it's very difficult to get an entry-level job, especially here in IT. So we would use students to build their resumes. We also have like Family Promise is an enterprise that we partner with, and they help to reintegrate homeless people in the workforce. So we also help them kind of get this first experience and have more confidence in their skills. So yeah, very broad talent creation. And what we see is that usually they've heard of it illegally, but like they're not really aware of the downsides that I know that you know them also. So some of them is legal workers are not protected against discrimination laws. They don't have benefits. They don't have minimum wage. And so some elements that we include in our training is really like making sure that they understand this and that we offer them solutions.
Yeah, I did a story once about, it was tax time. I think Uber and Lyft were only around for like 2-3 years. And I went with a driver to a tax professional and to crunch the numbers. And the guy was just doing it like 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week. And he's like, yeah, I don't know, I'm probably making like 15, 20 bucks an hour. And like when we did it all, and like he bought a new car, there was appreciation on his car, his phone bills, like the gas, and all that stuff. When we did it, he was making like $6 an hour. And the thing is, he was like, at that point, actually, the way you could make a lot more for Uber and Lyft, it was early on, but you have to drive many, many hours to overcome your expenses. And the accountant was like, listen, if you want to make money doing this, you gotta drive like 40, 50, 60 hours, and then maybe you can get up like 15, 20 bucks an hour. But right now, you're not outstripping your expenses. And there was just like light bulb went off, and the guy said, he's like, all right, I'm not doing this anymore. So is that something, again, you meet people who think they might be making money and don't realize that maybe they're not? Or?
Yeah, so we're definitely including this in our training. So, just, okay, you have this $20 per hour gig, but like, think about what you need to buy, think about transportation costs, think about the taxes that you have to save. And so we definitely help them figure this out. And also something that I want to mention, we have an advocacy arm, so we are actually also working with states and cities to implement policies around like minimum wages or benefits, for living benefits. And we use the data that we collect from our students that we serve to say, look at what they're actually making so that you have, and so we
Yeah, I like looking at data. Is it public?
no, just white papers everywhere.
I'll have a work to do. Cool. How, what is it? Yeah.
system. We don't have anything like that for our economic system. So we don't, as a young person, I even thought that there could be a different economic system, right? It's like, oh, there's gravity and there's capitalism. And I think that this is really at the core of a ton of the problems that we're talking about, whether it's work, rights to work, housing, all of these problems, like ultimately come from our economic system, which is drives us to accumulate capital rather than life. And so I think the problem is that we don't have the imagination to think outside of our current economic system, and even if we did, we don't have the means to change it, and that's a real struggle. And I think there's many ways around this, but one of the things that is really important to us in these like counterculture spaces that we live in, and there's many of them, I encourage you to go and dip your toe in, is to try and create alternative economic systems. And so there's a really rich sort of like co-creative life in San Francisco and Oakland and right in the Bay Area. And in these spaces, there is income generation, but it's often communal income generation. And it's really interesting. So there's this wonderful idea that was generated by the Italian economists, who was an anti-white movement, and they it's called self-valorization, and it's the idea that you do work, that you produce products and goods and services, but you do it for the purpose of using it rather than selling it. And so in sort of the communes and the makers space and all these places, there's a lot of what you might think is work. Production is a really wonderful thing, wonderful life, but it's producing it for common use. And it's a huge different thing, and I think that's where we start to explore alternative economic structures that actually have human survival at the core.
And actually, I was curious, did you, were there a lot of other examples of co-living spaces in the Bay Area, like when you first moved here, and you were like, oh, were you kind of like, was that already happening here a bit, or was it, and I know like historically, right, there's like the Hall of Communards and like the Stephen Brand, the whole catalog, like that was like a very California thing. Stuart Brand, sorry. Stuart Brand. But was any of that happening when you moved here?
I think it was. So the issue with the community, the international community, is that they're often living slightly underground, and often slightly underground from each other. And so you can't really know that like structure is slightly submerged. You can't quite see how big it is, and I think it turns out to be enormous. So there's a lot of these spaces, and they're doing lots of like interesting stuff. But even still now, so I think we like network with these groups about 6 years ago, and that has been really powerful. So learning about how many spaces there are in the Bay, collaborating with them financially, culturally, how we share a ton of resources, and as a result are really resilient. But I don't think we'll ever actually know of all of the spaces.
Do you feel like that story, do you ever get people like pointing at that, talking to you, like, oh, look at like, that sort of is taking up the imagination of what spaces like this are? And yeah. And then on the flip side, there's other spaces that I've heard about where like it's a whole building and it's filled with people who are trying to start companies, and it's like very tech. It's like all they want to do is work. Where it sounds like you want to work a little less. So do you feel like there are these other two visions that sometimes, yeah?
I mean, I think the story that was missing from the Ghost Ship fire, that was super tragic fire, a lot of people died, is that what happened in the communes was that everyone rallied together, and within hours people were offering housing for people displaced, housing for families coming in for funerals. There was informal fire inspections happening from people who had previous work in the in the fire departments. There was fire extinguishers. There was like people going around doing electric inspections for people, and so the kind of solidarity that showed up was completely uncovered by the media, and that's like that's consistently happened, and it will continue to happen. And I think if you go and explore these lives, you'll see for yourself what's happening there.
Fair enough. I want to, yeah, we could start taking some questions. I'm sure you guys have lots of questions, but maybe before we get to that, just like, maybe quickly, if the panelists could talk about like their big fear for the Bay Area becoming more dystopian for some of the things we talked about, and if there is any, I don't know if you want to call it hope, but like things that you look at and you're like, oh, that's interesting, and maybe that would be a great thing. So yeah, we can just go down the line. Richard.
Well, yeah. We actually know how to do a lot of things right here. And like take housing. This is a great example. And we know how to protect a lot of housing for people. We know how to do rent control and how to draw lines around the tenderloin so that it can't be turned into tourist hotels. We've done a lot of that. And then land trusts are starting to really prosper here. And actually, we have the greatest system of urban land trusts in the world, but it's for open space and parks. And we haven't used that same idea of knowledge and money to do housing trusts. The principle is to take more and more housing out of the market, because housing markets don't work very well. And this moment in history, in this place, proved beyond a doubt that housing markets are terribly easily run off the rails. And it comes back to my original point, which is that the housing crisis, everything you've heard about it is mostly rubbish. It is not a supply shortage, and you can't build yourself out of it, because the demand is so out of whack, because there's too much money and too badly distributed to the top. Working class housing is not going to be built by developers because they know where the profit is. The choice places in the city are always going to go to the rich people because there are a lot of rich people that have way too much money. So the problem is not on the supply side. The problem is on the demand side. And without redistribution and massive redistribution, really, we're kind of screwed on that front. On the other hand, we do know how to throw sand in the gears and how to make this housing market work better for the people. And unfortunately, the landlords don't like that, the rentiers, so they defeated Proposition 10. God forbid we should have rent control. Or, ever since Nixon, public housing, absolutely essential for the bottom 20%, has been cut, so that America has almost no public housing. The only rich country in the world that essentially has no public housing. Because markets don't work for the bottom quarter of the population in housing. Housing's too weird, too expensive, and they don't work. So we have to rethink the whole approach to housing and stop bowing to the gods of the market.
Woo, yeah. I think I feel similarly. I think that we are in a really interesting moment in time, but I think if we don't do this right, we're going to create communism for the rich. And you can see that sort of play out in things like Burning Man, which is a wonderful thing. I love Burning Man. But the idea is that you're supposed to go there, learn a new way of being, and bring it fucking home. Not just be like, oh, we created a nice thing for me and my chums. And so I think whatever it is that we learn about how we can operate differently and really utopian behavior, and I don't mean reform, I mean something completely different, we need to make sure we're doing it for everyone, and I just think that's really important to hold on to.
I think you're really worried about and what you feel a little bit about.
Yeah, so same idea. I think inequality is a big one. When you speak about Bayview, where 40% of the population is at the poverty level and they're so close to us, that makes me feel really scary. Or the Uber drivers that are paid below minimum wage, things like this. Diversity that is not increasing in tech. But then the hope is really that cities have become more and more places of innovation. And we've seen public and private actors come together and try to find solutions that didn't exist before. So an example of this is, for instance, the Digital Workforce Development Initiative, where we partner with the city of San Francisco and Udemy and Fiverr to kind of provide a very comprehensive solution to low-income job seekers and provide them, not just hey, really some money or very traditional skills to find a full-time job, but really technical skills to do web development, coding, and then giving you also the tools to do your financial planning and really one-on-one coaching with Fiverr. So those types of initiatives like makes me feel hopeful about people coming together to find solutions.
I feel quite optimistic because our production system and model is changing fastly, and we are dealing with it not so bad. I think the reason of hope in the next years for cities are public transportation, because transportation is housing, and it's very important to invest. For instance, in the Paris region, we are currently building 200 new kilometers of subway, and it's open new neighborhood for people, and so it has an effect on decrease on prices. And the second point is about the density. We need to accept more density, because more people have to come in the city. So we have to think about our space consumption of every people in the household. And the third point is about taxation. I think more and more governments are becoming aware of how we are able to tax intangible assets. And for instance, in Europe, we are currently implementing a tax on intangible economy, and mainly on GAFA. It's not the best one. It will not work perfectly for the beginning, but it's a nice shot to try.
Cool. Yes, anyone from the audience who has a question? Yeah.
No one ever, as long as I'm here, has challenged them. No one ever has brought it up in the housing debate. Are you willing to, in HUD, bring this up? Not just the fancy echo chamber topics, which are on social media, but really become a leader for people who don't have resources.
Great. I'll take the challenge. Yeah, I think we definitely do a better job. I completely agree. Yeah. Listen in the next couple of weeks. Maybe you'll hear some stories that you feel are not the total echo chamber. In the back with the red hat.
Talking about political solutions, there is going to be not in the next political session, but in the one after, an opportunity for you, if you are of goodwill, to reform Proposition 13. Proposition 13 has a big loophole in it. It was passed in order to save the small landowners, the little old ladies like me, whose taxes were going up and up and up and up, but the big guys got an exception in there that included Bank of America's building, that included the Transamerica Tower, that included these huge buildings that never changed hands. So even though people who are in small buildings should have their opportunity to keep their taxes low, there's no reason why we should support Bank of America to have that advantage.
A footnote to that. It was not passed because of little people. It was passed because of Howard Jarvis, who is the representative of the Southern California Apartment Owners Association, came out of the old John Birch world of Orange County, and it was meant to help big rentiers of the kind that Robin wants to tax, and he's quite right about it. You're quite right in your complaint and what we need to do.
Any other questions? In the back, yeah.
To riff on what you were saying, I think that a lot of times when we have these kind of things, there really is a sort of shallowness of knowledge about the history of I've been here since 1979, which is not as long as some of these, but it's a fairly long time. When people ask me, how has the city changed? They think there's a one sentence answer. That's not a one sentence answer. It's not going to be a one sentence answer that's going to change. Again, it's been continually changing. And it will continue. But I think we knew about things like Project Arto, which was coming in the 80s, rent control, and how rent control became law in the city. If we knew about the devastation of the AIDS crisis, we knew about what life was here before the digital revolution, I think it would really help our thinking to think of what our solutions are going to be. Our political, and they will have solutions.
Great. Yeah, I agree. More history can't hurt. In the back with the suit jacket.
Get on the same page and do anything from like vegetable gardens to green energy to just do the stuff we already know how to do, but align the incentives.
Which is why you need a major push of a Green New Deal, where it's adopted as policy at all levels of government.
Another question right here.
So you mentioned a few times that some information is not usually shared by the media. Where would you inform yourself on, in general, things that isn't here in the papers? It's a question for, I mean, you because you mentioned it, but everyone here.
I mean,
Richard just reads his own books over and over again.
You can't just produce after all.
I think, like, the media's job isn't to tell us what's going on in the world, it's to sell newspapers, right? So I think it's tough, like, figuring out where is like challenge for like I don't have the answers for you at all. Like, I think it's just making sure that we're getting out of our bubbles and pushing ourselves to think like wildly differently and investigating. Actually, like I think we can't just be passive consumers of information. We have to go out there and have experiences of the world and discover it that way also.
I think this is where I'm supposed to say public media. But, no, I truly believe I wouldn't work in any other media, and I have a lot of complaints about NPR and parts of KQED, but I actually think that radio is still a really great. Actually, when I think about stories, and I think about this a lot the last couple of years, like, what's the point of doing what I do? Like, why do I tell? Like, I have some people call me sometimes when I'm on NPR and they're like, hey, I heard you on the radio this morning, like an old friend I grew up with. They're like, oh, that's cool, yeah. I was like, well, what was the story? And they're like, it was about maybe a farmer or something. I said, I worked for a week on that story, man. You can't even remember, like, any of the facts. So that started happening a couple times, like, really, like, the impression or thinking of media less in terms of, like, information transfer and more in terms of, like, does someone feel sort of instigated by this story in some way?
Right.
And I have a side project in addition to my reporting on technology that's about sound, where they're not stories, they're just 90 seconds of sound with a little bit of narration. And NPR ran a couple of those, and one of them's just recording these mud pots down in the Salton Sea, and it's just like gurgling mud for like 40 seconds with no narration. But people wrote in and they were like, man, I was listening to that and I thought about all these things and I was like trying to figure out what it is. And there was this moment where they were kind of like shocked a little bit. And again, this is like totally tangential to what you're saying, but I think sometimes the media less in terms of like trying to create some space for people to like have a different thought or think in some other way. So I think for that, and I think that is a place where public radio and KQED like, to be delighted and have your thoughts go to different, your mind go to different places. That's my KQED plug right there.
I don't mean to terrible. I just mean like,
a lot of it is. So I mean, I'm not.
Yeah, I think it's important to think about the incentives going on. I'm a scientist, so I also operate in an extremely biased knowledge production system. And knowing the biases with which things are made, read, produced, helps you to sort of figure out your signal to noise. And I think that I think also another way to sort of get through this is to read about the sort of theory of knowledge production. Our institutions, how they came to be.
We were fortunate to have some excellent sort of small media that's very good, like KPFA or 49 Hills in San Francisco, or even the East Bay Express, that do very good work in that. Very. So,
question over here?
support
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, so unfortunately, since tech is kind of become the gig economy, a lot of economies that could have been an employee are now turning to gig employees or ICs like me. So how do you keep a job from becoming a gig?
Yeah, I think
Or
it's
will gigs eventually, people get tired of having a gig and want a job?
Yeah, that's a great question. This year I did a lot of I've been reporting on Uber and Lyft in the taxi industry for years now. This year it's just like really gotten dire. I mean, there's all these taxi drivers who the city got them to, or encouraged them to buy